Hi and welcome to this week's episode of Dave Johnson versus the Marvel Universe. This week I'm going to be looking at comics due out on Wednesday the 13th of May 2015. Okay, so the first book I'm going to look at is Thor number 8. This has been a book of misdirection pretty much from the get-go. It's all been about finding out the identity of the new female Thor. As we all know, Thor became unworthy during Original Sin. A new person was able to pick up the hammer, and the whole time throughout this we've been given little clues, which are also red herrings really. And in the last issue we saw the Destroyer, piloted by Kull, who is the brother of Thor and was the main villain of Fear itself. We see the Destroyer fighting against Odinson, who is now the unworthy Thor, as well as the new Thor, and a bunch of other Avengers and associates of Thor who were potentials to maybe be the identity of this new female Thor. Obviously, seeing all of those and Thor in the same room at the same time checks them off the list, and we know that Thor isn't any of those characters. For the longest time we thought it was going to be Thor's mother, Frigga, but again she's there and she's leading the battle against the Destroyer, so we know that that isn't the identity of the new Thor either. The narrative of this story, we've got Kull, who's in the throne room with Odin, and he's piloting Destroyer via some kind of like psychic link, and the power's going a bit to his head. So Kull's talking to Odin, and he's kind of one side of the story, saying he should teach Frigga a lesson. She shouldn't be just doing whatever she wants. And at the same time, they're watching the battle, and we've got Frigga who's going up against Destroyer unrelentlessly, and she's offering the other side where she's shouting. She knows Odin can hear, and she's talking about how he's just running amok and he's just being ridiculous. So you see both sides, and it's kind of the devil and angel on Odin's shoulders. Once the victory is assured in the book, there's a scene with the two Thors together. Odinson is convinced he knows who the female Thor is, and we're proven absolutely wrong, and it just shows why Thor's never been a detective. And it goes to a little epilogue, which is really exciting stuff. It shows the combining forces, which have been going on for a little while now, the combining forces of Malekith and Aga, and their plot finally comes to fruition. I'm not quite sure where that story's going to pick up with Secret Wars happening, but hopefully something interesting will come of that soon. And the people who don't read the title, the reveal at the end when we do find out who Thor is, for the people who don't read it, it seems that it's quite obvious to them, but if you've been reading the book, it wasn't obvious at all. I'm not going to say who it is. I think you should either read one of the many internet spoilers which leaked, or read the actual book. But it's a little bit of a stretch, because how did she even get to the moon? Definitely worth a read. I would recommend picking this up. Next up, Captain America and the Mighty Avengers number 8. This has been the most human of all the Avengers titles. You feel like you can relate to the heroes in this book a lot more than the grand heroics of Avengers, New Avengers, and even Uncanny Avengers. This is the last days of Captain America and the Mighty Avengers, so this is a direct lead into Secret Wars. The issue starts with 178 days until the end of the world, and by the last few pages we're on 14 days until the end. So it covers a lot of ground. This shows the people adjusting, adapting to the inevitable. Obviously in Avengers and New Avengers, I think it might have even been Secret Wars number 1, the world leaders told the people of Earth that the planet was ending, so this is them coping with that news. We see Steve Rogers in this book, and he gets put in his place by Luke Cage, and it's amazing, because Luke Cage used to see Steve, Captain America, as an icon. You saw in the days when they were on the New Avengers team together, he really looked up to him, and he sees that Steve's become a bit of a self-obsessed dick these days, and it's really fun to look at. This book hasn't really been great since it got renamed from Mighty Avengers to Captain America and the Mighty Avengers. But this issue is interesting. I'm interested to see where it goes, and I think I will pick up this last trade because I love Secret Wars and I love how it's showing that human element to a grand story. The next title I'm going to look at is Darth Vader #5. In the last issue, Vader acquired a droid army that had long been sort of lost from Geonosis. And he's combined with a very Kieran Gillen-esque team, which composes of a girl called Black Chrysantan, not sure how you pronounce that, and 2 droids, one called 000 and one called BT, and they're hunting down the Emperor's would-be replacements for Darth Vader. Those 2 droids are amazing. They remind me of HK-47 from the Knights of the Old Republic games. If you ever played them, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Very funny characters. Straight away in this book, we see something that's clearly a rip-off of Marvel. I'm gonna have to show you. It's basically a rip-off of the Acanti, which are the space whales that have been... I mean, they were pretty much in Avengers, the movie as well, so you will have seen something very similar to those in the past in Marvel. But these in this book turn out to be the base of the antagonist of the story, Silo 4. You see a very cool infiltration scene showing how interesting Vader's little team are. We see some cool designs of characters from familiar races near the end of this book. I didn't expect to see them, but I do like some of the designs that they've come up with in this. There's not a lot happening in this issue, but there are a lot of cool designs. I think there's one more issue left of the story. This issue is mainly set up, so I'm going to see how that goes before deciding whether I'm going to buy the trade or not. But it's worth a look just for the art and the character designs I really like. Okay, so it was pretty obvious the next one I'm going to look at is, of course, Secret Wars #2. This review is going to contain minor spoilers, so if you don't want to see any, switch off now, watch it once you've read it. If issue 1, last week's issue, was the end of the Marvel universes as we knew them, this is the new beginning. So obviously that's an interesting place to jump on. The issue starts with a large number of Thors, and they're the police force of this new world as God intended. They're the law on Battleworld, and we see that God is actually revealed to be Doctor Doom. Obviously something went right in the last issue of New Avengers when he went back in time to stop the Beyonders, because now he's got unbelievable power. He's dressed all in white again, a la his Future Foundation days, and he looks awesome. It mainly sets up the new world that we're getting to know. We see an old Thor and our newest Thor kind of going on a tour around Battleworld. So we see little teasers of things here and there. It seems like the place has been around for years, and the laws and traditions and the order are all set in place, and they all revolve around Doom's religion. We move forward to a little scene where we see the Future Foundation. They all look a little bit different than the way they used to look, but they've discovered an artifact that we saw in issue 1, and that seems like it could be a threat to their god. So they feel like this needs to be raised as an issue. As the issue unfolds, we see which people have got influence over Doom, who's his right hand and who's his left hand, and they're interesting to see because some of those are relationships that have been around for years, and others kind of more recently. This issue's so good. It's so grand in its scope. We're seeing a lot of new things, and obviously starting next week we've got all the tie-ins that are going to begin. In here we see little teasers of those things. We see zombies, we see the Annihilation Wave, and we see the Ultron army. It's really exciting. I can't wait for everything that's coming up. I can't even wait for the next issue again, but I think we've got to wait a month now. There's no quick way to get that next issue like there was this time. At the end, we see, I can't really say what it is that we see, but things aren't exactly what we expected with the artifact. And I need the next issue. Secret Wars has definitely been my favourite read of the year so far. Pick it up. If you haven't picked the first issue up, go and get that. Get this. Read them both. Amazing, amazing stories. Okay, so that is it for another episode of Dave Johnson versus the Marvel Universe. Did you read any other comics that I haven't mentioned today? What did you think of them? Did you like the comics I spoke about? Please comment below, like and share the video if you like what you see, and I'll see you next week.
That's crispy.